Hello there. Last time I read out some of Gurdjieff's instructions for self-remembering, taken from several different books. This time I'm going to take some of the salient points from those books and have a closer look at them. Gurdjieff. In the state of remembering, half of your attention must be concentrated on the I am, and the other half must control the keeping of the state. Your head plays the role of policeman. It watches for you to guard your state. I am with the other half of the attention. So here we see the need to employ both male and female attributes in this practice at the same time. There is one part that is guarding the state, is monitoring the state. It is monitoring for, say, for instance, being taken away with associations or the activation of one of the many eyes, or loss of contact with the aim of the practice. This part of you is guarding the state. It is watching. And the other part is inside the state. It is I am. It is inside the presence. How do you begin? Well, it depends on which practices you're doing. Gurdjieff students often employ several different types of practices. One is counting with the breath, feeling the head. Gurdjieff had one where you breathe into the solar plexus, which makes your I am feel much stronger, and at the same time maintain contact with sensing. So there are varied types of practices to get you into the state, and once you have the sense of presence, the game is to maintain it, and to maintain it in such a way that you never really lose contact with it. How would you do that? So you learn how to enter the state, how to trigger it with these practices of breathing, counting, and so on. And then you want to maintain it, and maintaining the state is a kind of practice where one half is guarding the state and the other half is resting inside the state. So this is a semi-mechanical kind of practice. It's a practice that involves working at two levels simultaneously. The guarding of the state you're doing with the hunting mind, your normal mind. It's guarding the state, it's observing the state, checking. Am I still in the right place? Have I been taken away? Am I daydream? You bring it back. That's one half, and the other half is inside the presence, is trying to rest and get to know that presence, which is something new for you. The practice isn't really one of self-remembering, because you don't know who you are. You don't know what it means to be your presence. You don't know. You haven't experienced it before. It is you, of course. It is you, but it's a part of you that you've never known. And you have to learn to be this part of you. In the same way, if you became a parent, you would have to learn to be a parent, to discover that inside of you. Of course, it's you, but it's a part of you that you've never felt before. You've never lived as before. You've never experienced inside what it means. So one half is guarding the state, just observing and making sure everything's in the right place. At the beginning, surely this part of you is going to be spending most of the time and really checking and making sure. And the other half is inside the state and resting as the presence. Now you obviously have to get into the state in the first place. To get into the state, to notice the presence, to notice I am, this is something that you probably need a teacher or a group. Gurdjieff has many techniques, but they are not necessarily going to work. Somebody may, for instance, breathe into their solar plexus and experience nothing. For that you need a teacher. Now the next salient point I'll just read out here from Gurdjieff. Conscientiously and with all one's concentration, try to remember, as on a movie film, everything that one had done during each entire day. This was to be done every night before going to sleep. If you do this practice at night, you start to learn who you are. You start to remember and see what you're doing in the day. What did I actually do? Where was I? What was I thinking? And in a way, it reminds me of the way Christians would teach their children to kneel beside their bed and pray to God at night. When you pray to God, if you feel God, you also feel yourself. It's that simple. Gurdjieff does it differently, and if you try to remember the events of your day, you will learn about the rhythms of your day, and you feel something. You feel something like a glow inside, and that glow is your presence. It's not manufactured, it's not superficial, it's not impersonal. It is the light inside of you. Yeah, like a subtle shimmer of white light around you, a subtle glow. It is the feeling of your soul. The next part, this is a quote from a student. I wish to remember myself as long as possible, but I have proved to myself that I very quickly forget the task I set myself. I have noticed that other associations engulf the associations connected with self-remembering. Well, I would say that such a student needs to just buckle down and get a clock in front of them and look at the clock. Let the clock help you. Give yourself a half an hour period and then do the practice. Write it down on a piece of paper if you like. Then just do it and try to feel yourself. This is not an impersonal exercise. It's not something mystical or abstract or intellectual, or it's not particularly clever. If you want to count to 4 whilst feeling your breathing, and then just rest. Who is here? And I think if you do have a lot of difficulty like that, this student sounds like he's trying to be a bit too intellectual or mechanical about it, then you need a teacher to help you feel what it may mean to be yourself. This next part is very important. It's about the difference between mechanical and indwelling self-remembering. It's from Gurdjieff. It should be pointed out here that self-remembering, however full and whole, can be of two kinds, conscious and mechanical. Remembering oneself consciously and remembering oneself by associations. Mechanical, that is associative self-remembering, can bring no essential profit. Yet such associative self-remembering is of tremendous value in the beginning. Later it should not be used. For such a self-remembering, however complete, does not result in any real concrete doing, but in the beginning it too is necessary. There exists another, conscious self-remembering which is not mechanical. Okay, this is very important. As I have described, and as Gurdjieff described, in the practice of self-remembering, one part is guarding the state and one part is inside, sensing and resting within and learning to be the presence there. Of course, you have to trigger the state with breathing into the solar plexus or something. You have to do that. Once you trigger it, you want to rest inside it. You want to become part of it. In the beginning, there will be more guarding of the state, but gradually that guarding, which is the mechanical part, has to be loosened and relaxed. So with less and less effort, you just maintain the presence by being inside of it. And there is a sort of changeover where most of the emphasis is on guarding, and later on, and maybe a lot later, you're able to rest within the presence and maintain it from within. How can I maintain it from within? Because self-remembering is like a fire that is lit inside you. It's a small fire, and by mechanically doing it again and again, day after day, in a carefully judged practice, not mucking around but really trying to make it happen, learning to be yourself inside, the fire starts to be lit, and then the fire can eventually maintain itself. But this can only happen if the fire knows itself. It has to be lit and sense itself, meaning that when you are your presence, when you are the I am, gradually something is changing at a very deep level inside yourself, and you learn how to be the presence with no guarding, eventually with no guarding. As this is happening, the presence learns to maintain itself, and that is self-remembering. When the fire maintains itself, the presence maintains itself. The very subtle changes happen inside of you. Very small changes, almost undetectable. Like the formation of a stalactite. It can take a long time. But the way to do it is to mechanically initiate the state and stay within it. In a solid practice, what does it feel? How does it feel to be in this presence? I am this presence. It seeps in. It changes you at a very deep level. There is actually inside a change in the subconscious intelligence and in the conscious intelligence together. They learn to bridge themselves in the presence. There's very subtle stuff happening inside, and it is like learning who a lover is. If you have a lover and you spend time with her again and again and again, and you become imbued with the sense of that person. And self-remembering is to become imbued with the sense of yourself again and again and again and again, and to learn to appreciate it and to be it. And then the guarding doesn't need to happen so much, see. And eventually one day you can let that go, and it becomes permanent. Yes. Enjoying the glow of being. It's very subtle, but it is like that mustard seed that is so small, but if you stay with it, you fall in love. Now, Ouspensky also says something very beautiful that I read out last time. He says, try to realize that you are here at this moment of time, sitting in a chair in this very room with your knees crossed. I'm speaking of something very practical. This is a very beautiful statement from him.